I think the priority here for the universities, the presidents, the chancellors, and people like that is to avoid giving the student athlete much more fodder to make the claim that they are employees and not amateurs. That is what, to me, this is all about. Because when a player themselves makes the argument that if the students can come back on campus and go to class and all of that stuff, why can't we play? That's a legitimate question, because I remember just days ago, I had somebody who's an expert in collective bargaining negotiations and beyond explain to me that if the students are not on campus, but the student athletes are on campus, then their argument to be treated as employees, thereby requiring equitable compensation and things of that nature, is buffered. Whereas if the student athletes are on campus with the students, then the institutions can get away with maintaining amateur status, and as a result, that increases their chances of ultimately playing football. So if you're going to allow the students on, it would seem to be reasonable that you would still have football because you have the students on campus. So why not have the student athletes? So if you are the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC, and this is such a primary concern of yours, what is the explanation for that? I think the explanation for that is that they are guarding themselves against liability, and they are guarding themselves, equally as important, they are guarding themselves against buffering any argument to the student athlete that they are amateurs as opposed to being employees, and thereby requiring some more compensation. I think that's what they're fighting right now. I think that's what this is about in my estimation, Paul. I recognize the fact that I could be wrong, but I don't think so.
You are correct. You have broken the code, Stephen A. For all the conversation about medical experts and epidemiologists and all this that we're 5 months into right now on the day, it's about the legal aspect of it. From the student aspect, you're right. I don't think it's necessarily overriding everything else, but the late entry into this conversation from the students demanding a voice has scared a lot of administrators. But what I think ultimately will shut this down is the liability issue. And I think it got worse yesterday for the 3 remaining Power 5 conferences. If the Big Ten and the Pac-12 say, we don't think it's safe, then do you want to be the commissioner of one of those other 3 conferences if something terrible happens, if you have a cataclysmic event on your campus, heaven forbid? Try going into court and saying, well, we thought it was okay, and then the plaintiff bring in witnesses from the medical team of the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. So there are so many things at work here. I think the other 3 conferences are also posturing right now. They saw the reaction yesterday and the day before. They heard Ryan Day and James Franklin and Jim Harbaugh speak out very eloquently for their young players. They've seen the tweets from Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence. They heard the maniacal ranting yesterday of Scott Frost and the Nebraska chancellor threatening to go find someplace else to go and forfeiting $52 million in television money a year, of course. They're waiting it out. I think they're also waiting, guys and Molly, for students to start flooding into the campuses, which they are right now. And one would be aspirational and say it's going to go great, adding 20 or 30,000 students on any campus in the South or in the East. But it's probably not going to go very well. And the second that they have issues on those campuses, Max, to your point, I think the presidents will shut the campuses down, and then the domino effect will happen. The rest of college football will shut down as well.
Paul, Max, I wanted to share something with both of y'all that I've been thinking, and it's just my opinion, obviously, but I really wanted to hear what y'all thought about this. One of the things that I religiously talk about is the need to play chess as opposed to checkers, particularly when it comes to the African-American community. A lot of times when we are criticized for being too emotional without a strategy. And why do I bring that up in this particular instance? When the whole George Floyd murder went down, because that's what the hell it was murder. When that went down, okay, what you see was just obviously just social justice really come to the forefront and we saw voices coming out of the woodwork that we had never heard before. Why is this relevant? Because in the sport of college football, in my estimation, what you pointed to, Paul, although it was on a completely different issue, when you saw college athletes speaking up and speaking out and making demands, this pandemic coming down the pike and obviously the repercussions to follow, as we're now seeing, when you speak about those university presidents, chancellors, etc., being fearful of the athletes having a voice, the Trevor Lawrence, the Justin Fields of the world saying, we want to play, we want to play, we want to play, stuff like that. I'm saying they didn't forget the voices that they were hearing just weeks earlier and some of the demands emanating from that because of the social justice issues that we were all addressing ad nauseum over the national airwaves and beyond. I think that fear also transitioned to this because they constantly think about quelling and stymieing the potency and the power of others rather than doing what's right. What do you guys say to that?
Paul, do you want to comment or should I go?
Go ahead, Max. I'm eager to hear what you say.
I think that may play into it, but I think, Stephen A., your original point, and I was talking about that same point yesterday as it relates to why you can't do a bubble in college football, right? Because then you have to make it at least I think it's 51% of the student body needs access to the same things the athletes have, or else you consider them labor. So I think your first point is really whatever other influences there are, your first point is the deciding factor. Like, take that away and maybe we're in a different situation. The issue is the hypocrisy of college sports has been laid bare through this whole process. However much they want to talk about student athletes, when there's this much money at stake, of course it's about the money. And yet they don't want to say and set precedent now, okay, it's really unpaid labor. They're really workers. They want to avoid that at all costs.